What's up, everybody? Hope everybody had a great weekend. Is having a great weekend so far. Welcome to a brand new edition of the Alfredo Torres Debacle, live debacle here on Facebook, the Facebook Debacle, blah, 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 so on and so forth. I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that you guys are having a great time. I know things are going good for me. I can't complain. I want to make sure before we get started yet, it's going to take me a couple minutes to get in it as Facebook starts telling everybody that I'm live and you guys check in, stopping by. Make sure, please, I'm begging you to do a reaction so that I know that you guys are here. So I know that you guys stop by so that I know that I am getting through to you, because that's the whole thing. Otherwise, why am I doing this? I'm not doing it to for my wife to laugh. I could do it without getting up on here and having to worry about all the crap that I got to do, making sure the camera's working and making sure that I'm centered good and that I'm not moving around too much so that, my buddy Rich Harris sits there and talks about how the chair is crying. And thank you, honey, for being here. You know that I appreciate you. So I got a few things that I'm going to talk about. And the main one, of course, is going to be the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I'm not going to start off with that. Instead, I'm going to start off with the fact that the dealers are out. You guys know what I mean by the dealers, right? It's that time. It's the time for the Girl Scouts to be out there on the street corners selling their stuff. And you know what I mean by their stuff. Them cookies. The Girl Scouts out there selling them cookies. And it's for a guy like me who's a diabetic, it's not a good time. It's not a good time at all to be out there walking the streets, passing by, the Walmarts and passing by. Yesterday we were over, my wife and I, we were over in front of the Ross. You got the Marshalls and then you got the Ross. We were over there and they were setting up there. And I start jonesing and my wife is like, no, you've been clean and sober for a year. Don't go. Don't do it. And I'm like, honey, I gotta go. I'm doing this. And I'm like, yo, give me those s'mores. I need those s'mores. And my wife is, no. And she throws me in the car and she starts up the car and I'm trying to jump out as it's moving. I'm like, honey, come on, please. I need it. She's like, you've been so good. You just got your year chip for being, not having to getting away from the Thin Mints and getting away from the tag-alongs. It's gonna be a rocky 2 months. Rocky 2 months. I got a personal dealer who calls me up. She's like, "Hey Alfredo, how you doing?" "I'm doing good. My daughter wants to say hi." I'm like, I don't need to talk to your daughter. Your daughter's in the 6th grade. Why I need to talk to her? She wants to talk to you. No, I'm good. And then of course she puts her on. It's like, "Hi, Mr. Torres." I'm like, what's up? I just wanted to say hi. And then in the background, her mother's going, "Why don't you tell her what you guys, what the troops up to?" She goes, "Well, we're doing all kinds of stuff. Like we're getting ready to set up this thing for equestrian riding for underprivileged children." And I'm like, no. She goes, "And I always look forward to your support." I'm like, I can't. I really can't. I physically can't. As my friend as my friend Nick Papa George used to say, no, I physically can't go and have any of these cookies. And she's like, the children, really appreciate it. Have you ever tried any of those glucose monitors? I saw. Look, hey, see what this is? I don't know if you guys could see it. I was actually just changing it. This right here. This is not a glucose monitor. This is a glucose injector. Like it has insulin in it. And when my blood sugar gets to be a little too high, it injects me and it gives me some insulin. And when I am doing too much, like if I go and I eat, bam, I can punch in how much insulin I need. So yeah, I have a, and I've got the see that right there? That's the little thing that sends it my glucose levels. So yeah, none of that helps because anybody who's an addict will tell you how hard it is to quit. And when I'm trying to quit, I can't. Not when I got an adorable girl in the 6th grade calling me, telling me about how I'm helping her save the planet by buying these cookies, and how I'm gonna help her go to camp. And if I don't buy any, she doesn't say if I don't buy any cookies, she's not gonna go to camp. But what she'll say is, she'll say something like to the effect of, we're only, we only need 25 more sales, and then I'll make my goal. And that's the look she's giving me over the phone. She's giving me this look right here. And I can hear the look. I can hear the look over the phone. And then it's like, how much? Okay, I'll do it. And my wife is crying. She's like, no, because now she's got to deal with me. Have you ever lived with an addict? You know, it's not a pretty sight. It's not something that's going to be an easy thing. But she's there like, no, you're gonna break the family apart. Stop it. I'm like, honey, I'm just getting tag-alongs. I know what I'm doing. Okay, I can put them in the fridge, and I can let I let them get cold, and I only eat 1 or 2 a night or something. And she knows that I'm gonna kill the box. I'm gonna kill the box. I'm not gonna eat 1 or 2. And then once that happens, now I'm gonna be perusing the Walmarts. I'm going to be perusing the Targets, waiting to see if they're setting up. And the bad part is that once I get into, anybody who's ever done any kind of thing that's addictive, right? You always start with the quality stuff. You always go, start with the quality booze. You start with the quality weed, right? What happens as the addiction grows? You don't care. You just need the fix. So what do you think is going to happen to me in a month after I do this? I'm hanging out at Aldi's, buying the Aldi's brand of Samoas and the Aldi's brand of the Tagalongs, because that's all I can afford at that point. At that point, that's all that's left. I can't go and buy $500 worth of Girl Scout cookies because my wife won't let me, right? But I know that I can get the Aldi's brand in 2 months when I need that fix. And that's going to be the hard part. That's going to be when I got to, I don't know. But I'm doing this year. So what I'm doing this year is we can send some to the troops, right? Like they'll buy boxes. You could pay for boxes and they'll send them to the troops. And it's a good way to take care of the troops right here. You guys are out in hell. Here's a bunch of Samoas for you to keep you jonesed up, keep you jacked up. So normally I'd buy a box, okay? And I'd buy 7 boxes for me. 7 for me, 1 for you. This year, because I still want to support the troops. I was the troops. Not too long. It was 20 years ago. But I was the troops, right? So I was always grateful when somebody out in the world would buy these things for us, right? And sometimes we'd get cigars. Sometimes we'd get hot sauces, like boxes of hot sauces that would donate to us. And sometimes when we're lucky, we'd get Girl Scout cookies. And so this year, I split it. I went 4 and 4 instead of 7 and 1. And I don't drive much, so I don't have to worry about, hey, honey, I'm going to get a loaf of bread. And my wife doesn't have to worry about it. I'm going to come back with a trunk full of Girl Scout cookies that I got to sneak in somewhere and hide it. And the only place for me to hide it is in this room. This is all I got, right? It's her house. And then I got this room. And she doesn't come into this room. So it's the only place that I can hide it. and I can't hide a trunk full of Girl Scout cookies, and honestly I can't afford it. So beware if you guys are going out and and you see those little dealers out there. Don't be fooled by the smile. Don't be fooled by the smile. Don't be fooled by the pigtails and the thank you, sir. Don't. Okay? Because right next to them, you're gonna see their pimps. You're gonna see their parents just like sell them another box. Sell them another box. These poor kids don't know what they're doing. Their parents out there. Go ahead, come on. Sell them another box. And they're looking at you like mean mugging you. That's all you're gonna do to support my daughter? All right, I'll buy another box. Leave me alone. All right. So just be careful when you're out there. Be careful. And if you're a loved one of somebody who's addicted to this stuff, be strong for them. Okay, be strong. And if you need an intervention, have it, man. Don't be scared about having an intervention, helping these people out. So anyway, what's this? Kurt says, I saw something the other day that supposedly a 10-minute walk after eating is better than just a 30-minute walk all at once. Well, if I wasn't a fat ass and was so tired after eating, maybe I could do a 10-minute walk. What kind of bullshit is that? A 10-minute walk after eating. After eating, I'm going to take it, you know what? I'm going to take a 30-minute nap is what I'm going to do after eating. Come on, Kurt. Come on, get with it here. I'm fat, for the love of God. Trying to get me to walk, especially after eating. The only walking I'm going to do is to the bathroom to make more room for more food. So I just finished watching the SNL 50th anniversary concert, right? It happened a couple days ago on Valentine's Day. Happy belated Valentine's Day for all of you lonely bastards who didn't get somebody to tell you happy Valentine's Day. So I was watching it, and it was an interesting mix. A lot of newer people doing a lot of deeper songs, and you had who was it who did Tom Petty? I can't even remember who did a Tom Petty song. They had Bad Bunny doing his best Tito Puente salsa thing, and it was good. I liked it. But the one thing that shocked me was Eddie Vedder. And I bring him up because, it wasn't too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, when I talked about, I don't know how many of you guys might remember this, but I had talked about how we were, criticizing the old people, right? But the old people who you guys say didn't understand were yesterday's hippies. Today's old conservative fogies were yesterday's hippies, right? And how every generation eventually becomes that. And so here's Eddie Vedder, the guy who used to dive off of stacks of speakers, right? And the guy who there's a famous picture of him swinging off of the top of a truss at a stage, must be about, 50 feet high, right? He's gonna go fucking launch himself into a fucking, into the crowd, and he's dressed in a suit. He's dressed in a suit. That doesn't say a lot, and that's one that a lot of you younger guys should be able to relate to. Okay, this was the guy who sang about Jeremy, whatever in class today, right? Jeremy spoke in class today. This is that guy, who sang Black, right? Sang Corduroy, sang your grandmother looking in the rearview, watching a dog take a shit in the rearview mirror, some shit like that, right? And he's in a suit. Where was his flannel? Where was his t-shirt? Fuck the man, and the hell with the system, and the system killed Kurt, or shit like that. No, he's part of it now. He was part of it, and that was sad to me. It was sad. So yeah, then I saw the B-52s, who looked old, which hurt me because I got a picture somewhere of me with Kate Pearson. Oh my God, it was on her 60th birthday, and she looked absolutely gorgeous. Um, and she looked like she had too much work done. And that was what, 16 years ago, 17 years ago. So she's in her mid-70s now, and just it hurt me to see her. But then I saw Devo, and Devo was awesome. They did the song Uncontrollable Urge. And there's a part in the song where it goes, yeah, 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 yeah. Dun, 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 dun. And I was doing that, and my wife was looking at me like I was crazy. But we got tickets to go see Devo because they don't do East Coast tours too often. They do a lot of West Coast tours. They do a lot of festivals and shit like that. But they're gonna be at the Anthem, and so her and I got tickets, and and I think we're gonna get VIP so that I can do some other stuff, right? Because I want to get some things autographed. Like, so I got that whip that's over there. That's autographed by Gerald Castle, but I want to get it autographed by Mike Mothersburg. So I might bring that with me. And then up there, I got a piece of the radiation suit that says Devo from when I saw him back in 2009 at the 930 Club. And I might get Mike Mothersburg to autograph that. So I don't know. I got to talk to her about getting the VIP package. I've got plenty of autograph stuff. You can see some of it behind me. But yeah, I want to get some of this stuff autographed. I want to see him, maybe get Waldo to take a picture with him. We'll see. Anyway, bottom line is, if you get a chance to see it, it's worth watching. It really, really is. But you're going to be in for a little shock, especially if you're going to watch some of the older people who are performing. Okay. And if you've seen it, put a comment, drop in a little comment. Let people know that you saw it. Let them know what you think about it. Okay. Adam Sandberg doing Dig in a Box with Lady Gaga. That was pretty funny. So there's some good things to it. There's some of it that's like, but I thought it was worth a watch. Go ahead, check it out. If you saw it, drop a little comment in here so we can talk about it. Make sure that you're hitting the like, the reaction button, whether you like it, whether you think something's funny. I don't even know if Facebook has look, oh God, here we go, this shit, look. But if it does, you can do that. I don't care. I just want to know that you guys are there and that you're watching. So drop a comment, right? Hit a reaction button, and be part of the discussion. So let's talk the meat and potatoes. Let's talk about why you guys are really here. Those of you who are here. Last week, we had the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame nominations. Going back to, I'm doing good. I appreciate you, brother. Hope you're doing well too. Going back to my radio days, I always had this discussion. And those of you who used to listen to me back then know that this time of the year was always a rough time for me. And it was a rough time because there were people who got inducted who I felt had no business being inducted. There were people who got inducted that I was like, this guy's getting inducted before them. And then there are people who have not been inducted, and their chances are falling by the wayside with every year that passes. So I'm going to start with the people who got inducted. And according to Billboard magazine, and this is the reason I like this list, it was because it gives odds. Honey, yes, no monkeys again. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. I don't want to get too outraged right now when I start talking about the people who, once again, were blown off. But those of you who don't know who made the inductions, I'm going to tell you, and then again, according to Billboard magazine, what the odds are. So, heading up the list right now, we're going to start off with Billy Idol. The frontman for the punk band Generation X. Everybody knows him mainly from things like Eyes Without a Face, White Wedding, things like that. Big early MTV staple. Um, yeah, I think at this point it's all right for him to be nominated. It's been a while. You know, you have other people from that genre who came in before him, so I don't see a big deal about him being nominated. Odds 10-1, 10-1 odds on him making it. Here's another. The next one, Joy Division / New Order. Two bands, essentially the same band. Joy Division, many consider the first goth band. Ian Curtis was their lead singer. Committed suicide just as their big song broke out, which was Love Will Tear Us Apart. The band kept going, changed up under the name New Order. So right now they're kind of going in as a couple. It's not the first time that they're going in. I believe last year was the first time. It's gonna be a little tough for them to make it in, though. It's gonna be a little tough. What's going on, Paul? I just saw Jack White on the SNL 50th anniversary concert. Joy Division gonna be tough, and I'll tell you the main reason it's gonna be tough is because of they're considered goth. Now the Cure is already in. Cure is considered goth, but the Cure was more mainstream, as mainstream as goth could be. Okay, so Joy Division, New Order, they're at 8-1 odds. Now we're gonna go classic rock band, a band which a lot of people say should be in. Frontman Paul Rogers. A lot of people know him from Free. They also know him from he was in a band with Jimmy Page, Tony Thompson in the 80s. They had the song Radioactive was their big hit. Anyway, and it's Bad Company. Classic rock staples, classic rock radio staples. They're looking at 8-1 odds. This is one that should be a shoo-in. They're at 6-1 odds. I don't know why they're not better. But it's Soundgarden. Everybody and their mother from the freaking grunge bigwigs are in already. Nirvana's in. Pearl Jam's in. These guys should be in. These guys 100% should be in. My personal opinion is they're the best of the grunge bands. And I think it's time to get them in. Again, coming in at 6-1 odds. This is probably this last guy's chance. Early 60s, really going in because of the one major hit he had. And it was the twist. He created a dance craze, which to this day still rock. And he did others. He did the Pony and some other stuff. But it's Chubby Checker. Now we're at a point where all of those early rock and rollers are in or they're out. Right? At this point, Hall of Fame's been open, I don't know, 35 years, 40 years, whatever the hell it is. All those guys are in. Right? Little Richard's in, Elvis Presley's in, Chuck Berry's in, Jerry Lee Lewis is in, Fats Domino, I believe, is in. Chubby Checker's really the last one that I can think of. And this is, I think this could be his last shot, because at this point, all those old guys are long being forgotten about, right? And unlike in baseball, where you have a veterans committee that can vote in people who've been forgotten, you don't have a veterans committee when it comes to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So these older bands that are being bypassed over and over and over and over, when they do come up, they need, if people really believe that they need to be in, they need to vote them in right now. Is there anywhere I wanted to visit that I haven't been able to yet? I want to go to. I want to go see Motown. I want to go see the hit. The Hit Factory. But anyway, Chubby Checker 5-1. Black Crowes, solid band. Do they need? Are they really Hall of Fame worthy? I don't know. They're at 4-1 odds. Mana. I've never heard of this band. They're a Mexican rock band. I guess they're pretty big in the Latin American countries. I have no idea why they're being nominated. I've never heard of them. I've never heard of them making any kind of serious contribution to rock and roll or pop music. I would, if you're going to go with a non-English speaking band, I would have went with Menudo. If I got to go with somebody, but they're at 4-1 odds. That blows my mind. They have better odds. No, that's it. Not. But I mean, I don't know. Then this next guy, Joe Cocker. When I saw that, I couldn't believe he wasn't in. Joe Cocker is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he's had a bunch of hits, but the one that's really dug into people's mind is that version of the Beatles with a little help from my friends. A lot of people know it from the Wonder Years. It was the theme to the Wonder Years. A lot of people know from watching the Woodstock movie, that performance that he did on there. He's at 3-1 odds. Cyndi Lauper, well, she's unusual. She's coming in at 3-1 odds. I don't know how I feel about her either. In the sense of was she essential to the new wave movement? I don't know. Does it really affect the new wave pop music? From I don't know if it does, if she doesn't exist. Paul, if you're still listening, tell me, what do you think about Cyndi Lauper and at 3-1 odds? Do you think she deserves to make it in or not? I'm not happy with this one at all. But when you look at some of the people in her genre who are already in, she definitely deserves to make it. Not as the groundbreaker for a new genre, but because the precedent is already there. And I'm talking about Mariah Carey, who's coming into 2-1 odds. I'm not a fan. Well, I love her early stuff. Let me take that back. I love her early stuff. I'm not a fan of her being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But she is not breaking ground at this point. At this point, all she is doing is following in on the coattails of Whitney Houston, of Janet Jackson, of Madonna, of acts like that. Female pop acts who made it big. And then following her will be the Lady Gagas and the Britney Spears and the people like that. Do they really belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Not in my opinion. But my opinion doesn't matter. I don't have a vote. No, they haven't. Madonna or Cyndi Lauper haven't done anything good lately. But they're not getting voted in on what they've done lately. Okay? What have any of these bands done good lately? If they're even still around. But anyway, she's coming in. Mariah Carey's coming in at 2-1. Here's a band coming in at 3-2. I'm not a big fan of them. Though I've seen them in concert 5 times. Imagine if I was a fan. And I think they're essential for the genre of music that they play. Also very underrepresented, and that's Fish, as one of the jam bands, one of the essential jam bands of that essential bands of the jam band genre, Fish should 100% be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we're talking about again, we're talking about a genre that is underrepresented. Okay, when you figure that they're you got Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Some people mix them in as a jam band. They're not. You got the Allman Brothers. Some people will say they're a jam band. They're really not. Pure jam bands like the Grateful Dead. That's about all you got in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I don't have the whole list, but that's about it. It's an underrepresented genre, and if you're gonna break the mold, or you're gonna start putting in people like the Madonnas of the world, the Whitney Houstons of the world, well, jam band music has more ties to rock and roll than that kind of R&B / pop music. So I think Fish should definitely make it. Will they make it? Probably not. Now, not also, but this band's coming in at even money. You know, every year you have to have the hip hop representation. I don't know why, to be all inclusive, I guess. And this year's hip hop representation, Outkast. They're coming in at even money. They'll make it just because they're the hip hop representation. Personally, they're okay. Are they essential? I don't know. I'm still shocked that Missy Elliott made it in over Queen Latifah, who, if you're going to put in a hip hop female, it should have been Queen Latifah. If you needed the hip hop representation, I think Queen Latifah would have been a better representation, my opinion. But nope, this year they're going with Outkast, and they're coming at even money. Now, also coming in at even money, the band that you asked about, Paul, if you're still listening, the White Stripes. They deserve it. I don't know. People tend to think, I've made the argument before. Jack White's amazing. Meg White was a simple drummer. I don't care what anybody says, and you don't need to be a flashy drummer to be essential. Okay. People like Charlie Watts, he wasn't a flashy drummer. Charlie Watts of the Rolling Stones, Kenny Jones of the Faces, and later on of the Who. They're not flashy drummers. Okay. But they were essential to the band and the sound. You can't put somebody in to replace Charlie Watts and brings what he brings to the Rolling Stones, especially in the early days. Okay. I think the White Stripes become the White Stripes with another drummer. I just don't see the big deal about Meg White. And I know there are people like Meg White, oh my God, she's got a, without it, you don't get the White Stripe sound. Bullshit. Somebody who uses this, the crash cymbal as a hi-hat, I could sit there and hit the crash cymbal, every 1 in 3, it doesn't. What's up, Brian? It doesn't do anything to me. I was kind of sad that hip hop rap didn't go more in the boys to men type direction overall. I'm more of a fan. Once it hit the 90s, I was more of a fan of the Daisy movement. So I was more of a fan of A Tribe Called Quest and oh my God, why can't I think of their name? Plugs 1, 2, and 3. You guys know who I'm talking about by just me saying that. They did the song My Buddy. The album was 3 Feet High and Rising. De La Soul. From the Soul. Black Medallions, no gold. Yeah, Jungle Brothers. I went more into that route. Um, and then last but not least, of those that made the nomination, Oasis. And Oasis odds are 1 and 2. Another band in the genre that's underrepresented, the Brit pop genre, a sound that was essential in the 90s. I prefer the Stone Roses. I prefer Blur when it comes to that Brit pop sound. I was never, Oasis had a couple good songs. I never bit into the hype of Noel and Liam Gallagher being the next greatest things, the next Lennon and McCartney, and that Oasis was the next Beatles. No, I never bit into it. Still don't buy into it. That's a band, even though the genre is underrepresented, that's not the band to let in to represent that genre. At least not now. Maybe after you have 3 or 4 Britpop bands in there, then maybe. But right now, no, they're not the ones to represent it. So that's the list of who's in. That's the odds that that Billboard magazine is giving them. I'm not a big fan of Billboard anymore, but every now and then they come up with a really good article, and I like that one because it gives you the bands, it gives you a little description, and then it gives you the odds. So check that one out to see what you think of this year's nominees. Now, it's that time. And honey, this is when you can mention the Monkees now. The bands that have been excluded. Once again, essential bands. Now, the one thing I'm happy about is that since I've been doing this, and I've been doing this since 2003, a lot of the bands that I have mentioned have finally been inducted. Bands like Kiss, bands like The Cure. I remember bringing up The Cure. Alice Cooper. Some essential people have finally made it in. Yay. Now, there are bands and there are singers who are still being left out, and it is downright disrespectful. Downright disrespectful. And we're going to start with the band that my wonderful wife has mentioned twice, and which I mention every year. It is one of the first 2 bands that come out of my mouth when I see the list and I see that they haven't made it. And it's the Monkees. Say what you want about that band, but without them, you don't have an entire genre of music. Okay? You don't have what they call that California country. Bands like the Eagles, and other bands along that side. Michael Nesmith was essential in forming that music. And the Monkees did a lot of those early songs. You don't have Linda Ronstadt with her music. Graham Parsons, the Flying Burrito Brothers. A lot of these types of bands that some of that Monkees music bled out into it. Okay, the Monkees again were essential in the sense that without the Monkees, you don't have the long form video. They were fun. God knows how many bands got started because of the Monkees. I mean that seriously. Again, they didn't make it. Another band that didn't make it. You see him right there. You see the hat. Devo. Formed, I believe, in 1972 over in Kent. They were in Kent State in Ohio. They were there at the Kent State Massacre. That's where they started to develop the form of what they call de-evolution, that humanity was devolving, right? And that's where they came up with their music. Brilliant band. Again, overlooked. how you go and include a lot of different genres and different artists, and I don't have the list of who's in the Rock Hall in front of me right now. But to continue to overlook bands like Devo, it just shows you that you know what, those in charge of the Rock Hall are more worried about being popular than they are about being right, into who is influential, whose music, if you take away, does it affect the history of music after it? You take away the Monkees, it affects music after it. You take away Devo, it affects music after it. You take away Outkast, does it affect it? I don't know. I don't know. But Devo, definitely a band that should have been included, and it chaps my ass every fucking year that Devo gets overlooked. Another band overlooked once again. Another band that chaps my ass that they've been overlooked once again. And those of you who know what this means, then you know the band, because it's time to up the irons. I'm talking about Iron Maiden. How the hell is Iron Maiden not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? At this point, metal is not a genre that's not acknowledged. Though that 80s metal, you're starting to acknowledge, you really do kind of still don't acknowledge it. But when you look at, Sabbath, Judas Priest, there's already some metal in there. Even though Judas Priest got in because of musicianship, they didn't get in, regular voted in. But they're in there. How do you not fucking have Iron Maiden? You got Metallica. How do you not have Iron Maiden, but you got Metallica? Hey, what's up, Diane? And by the way, Diane, who just came on there, she's saying hi. She's the mother of my dealer, who I talked about earlier. So if you need a little bit of the, make sure you catch up with her if you're down in the Hampton Roads area. She got the good stuff. She'll hook you up. Anyway, how is Iron Maiden not in there? Honestly, Iron Maiden is what's stopping a lot of other bands which deserve to be in there. Okay? There are a lot of bands that are not going to be even considered until you let Iron Maiden in there. Bands like Anthrax, bands like Megadeth, they're just other metal bands. Slayer should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What's going on, Jace? Slayer should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hell, they did more for rock and roll than Mariah Carey, and she's up for nomination. But you can't even start to consider bands like Slayer and bands like Megadeth and artists like that until you break the roadblock. And the roadblock, Pantera, another band that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And then, of course, the hair bands, the Poison, they should be in there. Motley Crue should be in there. You don't have to like them, but they're essential. They're essential to rock and roll. But none of that happens until you break the roadblock. And the roadblock is Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden is the band that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to finally open it up so that people can go, hey, what about the Panteras of the world? What about the Joe Satrianis, who isn't even metal, but because he's that kind of a rocker, you know? What about the Motley Crues? These are bands that should be for their genre. Okay, since we're not talking about, even if we were talking about rock and roll, we include them. But since we're not talking about a rock and roll Hall of Fame, but we're talking about a music Hall of Fame, because that's what it is. All right, you've let in Dolly Parton, you've let in NWA, you let in Madonna. How about we let in some rock and roll bands that are established rock and roll? Iron Maiden is the one that needs to go in ASAP. ASAP. And I understand they've said, yeah, you know, Bruce Dickinson says, I don't give a shit if I get in or not. It's not about you giving a shit, Bruce. It's not about the band giving a shit about whether the band shows up or not. The Sex Pistols didn't show up for their induction. Okay. Steve Miller got inducted and ripped the fucking Academy an asshole, ripped him a new asshole at his induction speech. It's not about whether the band itself is there to accept it or appreciate it or say thank you. It's about the fact that the music industry needs to recognize these fucking bands. Motorhead, another great example. These are bands that were essential in their genre. These are bands that were inspirational in their genre. Who cares if they ever had a number one hit or not? Who cares? Do I think Sepultura should be considered in the metal? I don't know. I don't know. I think there's too many bands before them that should be considered. And you know what? You can talk about Sepultura when Korn gets inducted. And if we're going to look at some point, we're going to have to look at new metal, right? At some point, you're going to look at new metal. You put in Eminem, for the fucking love of God. So you've gone into that time frame. You've gone into that late 90s, early 2000 time frame. So at some point, you're going to have to look at new metal. And you have to look at bands like Korn and Limp Bizkit and Godsmack and bands like that. Mudhoney. Not Mudhoney, excuse me. Whatever, Mud Shovel. Mud, whatever their fucking name is. I can't fucking think of them. But you're going to have to look at bands like that. Okay? Otherwise, they become the new wave. They become the metal of the 80s. They become the hair bands, where they're being overlooked. They're not being respected. And they should be. And they should be considered. You know, you look at industrial music, okay? And you let in 9 Inch Nails. Why? Because 9 Inch Nails is a popular band. But why did you not let in Ministry? Every bit is essential in the industrial genre. Why did you not let in Nipser Ebb? Every bit is essential in the industrial genre. Mudvayne, thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate you for that. I don't know why I got stuck after the mud. But you know, it's not just about letting in 9 Inch Nails because they had 3 hit albums, you know, in the early 90s. And because Trent Reznor is a good-looking man. Who gives a shit? Who cares? If we're looking at what they did for music, especially their genre, then that's why 9 Inch Nails goes in. But if 9 Inch Nails goes in, then Ministry goes in. But the reality is we can't look at any of these bands until Iron Maiden goes in. Because Iron Maiden is the logical next step for heavier rock to go in. And if we look, again, let's look at this list, right? if we look at this list, Oasis, I'm going backwards, the White Stripes, Outkast, Fish, Mariah Carey, Cyndi Lauper, Joe Cocker, Mana, the Black Crowes, Chubby Checker, Bad Company, Joy Division, Billy Idol, and Soundgarden. Who are the only ones who represent anything close to a heavier sound? Billy Idol, right? Because of his punk roots. And again, punk versus with Generation X in the 70s versus Billy Idol solo and the MTV tough guy with the snarl, his fist up like that in the 80s. Okay, big difference. And Soundgarden, who is really the only real heavy type of band falling under the grunge genre, and they're following Pearl Jam and Nirvana. Personally, again, like I said, they should have been in there before, but neither here nor there. But that's the closest that you have to a heavy band. And before they get in, and before Nirvana got in, and before Pearl Jam got in, Iron Maiden should have got in. They should have got in before Metallica. They should have got in before Guns N' Roses. They should have got in before Judas Priest. Hey, don't be too surprised about Debbie Gibson. Bill Warner puts up, well, you might as well put Debbie Gibson on the list. Debbie Gibson deserves every bit to be in there if you've got Whitney Houston. And if you're looking at Mariah Carey, and pretty soon when you start looking at the Backstreet Boys and the New Kids on the Block and Britney Spears, and they'll be looked at. They'll be looked at. I'm surprised New Kids hasn't come up yet. Be honest with you. Okay, but those bands are going to be looked at. And once you open up the door on them, Debbie will come back. Debbie shared Songwriter of the Year Grammy with Bruce Springsteen. Why shouldn't she be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? She's in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Bet you guys didn't know that. Why shouldn't she be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Especially if you're letting in the others. You let in the others. So yeah, Debbie Gibson should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Only because you let in the other people. But what I'm talking about is to me the three travesties. The Monkees, Devo, and Iron Maiden. All three of those should have been in. And they should have been in years ago. Years ago. I think they're waiting for Mickey Dolenz to die to let in the Monkees. I think I think it's kind of a Pete Rose thing. Where I think Pete Rose will get inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame this year or next year. Now that he's dead, right? I think, God forbid, that anybody from the Monkees realize, are made to realize how important they were to rock and roll, to the history of rock and roll music. Devo, you've already got one of the main members who passed away, Bob 2, Bob 1 or Bob 2, one of the two of them, okay, who has passed away. What are you waiting? Are you waiting for Gerald Castle and for Mark Mothersbaugh to pass away before you finally say, okay, we'll let him in? These are guys who need to be celebrated now while there's still somebody there. Iron Maiden coming up this year, their 50th anniversary this year. 50 years together, still touring the world, still selling out stadiums. Stadiums. We're not talking about them selling out a 1,000-seat arena. We're talking about them selling out 15,000, 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 seat arenas, stadiums. That's what we're talking about. Still doing worldwide tours. Every year, there's some major part of the world. You know, you go down to South America where they consistently have 50,000, 75,000 fans attending their shows. And they're not, and you're saying that they're not influential? Yes, yes. And Bruce does save them money because Bruce Dickinson, their lead singer, is also their pilot. He flies their plane, Flight 666, which is one of their albums, by the way. So, yes, they are influential. They should be in the Rock Hall of Fame. And yet they're not even nominated and haven't been. It's a travesty. And I'm going to talk about one more person who a lot of people, real music aficionados, say this guy should be in, and he's not. I say let him in based on other people of that genre and people who I respect who know more about music than I do, know more about music than I would ever pretend to know, and that's Warren Zevon. You guys might know him from Werewolves of London. Oh, Werewolves of London. He also has other, another one of his big hits, Lawyers, Guns, and Money, which I think is an incredible tune. Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner, Excitable Boy. He's got a bunch of songs that are pretty well known, and but I'm guessing from what people say, his catalog and his influence should get him in the Rock Hall. I don't know. They're just some people I don't know about. That's one of them. But if enough people who I trust, Carmelita, Zevon, okay, and Jason is saying Zevon was an amazing total package. Again, I'll take your word on it. I don't know enough about Warren Zevon. I know enough to get me in trouble. For me to mention, so name drop a couple songs and name drop some things that he's done to have people go, wow, Fredo knows about Zevon. I got no fucking idea. What I do know I like, I know he put out, he did something which to me, which is always amazing when a musician does it, which is he knew he was dying and he does this last album. Glenn Campbell did it. David Bowie did it. And they released this very emotional album. That's the the album of a person coming to terms with life and with death, which is a bigger thing for some of us older guys as we start to get to that the back nine of life, as I call it, in golfing terms. Once you get to the back nine, the realization that the 18th hole is coming is a lot more vivid, and when you're a musical artist who doesn't die from a drug overdose or from a plane crash or a fucked up fan or a jealous lover or a car wreck, or when you're a person who's in the music industry and has seen the ups and downs, the ins and outs of music, when when you have a disease that is going to take your life, and you're coming to the end, when you get a chance to put out that album, it's always just stunning. Johnny Cash, you could hear the last of his albums, the ones he did with Rick Rubin. He knew he was dying, and they were all amazing. The fact that God gave him enough time to create those 4 albums. Bowie kept it, kept it in his back pocket. Nobody knew. Puts out that last Black Star. Um, uh, and again, Warren Zevon was able to do that. Um, so yeah, a lot of people again thought he was the full package, like Jason said, and they believe that he should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But Zevon isn't cool. He's not Outkast. He's not Mariah Carey. It's not the White Stripes. So he gets overlooked, or he'll eventually get thrown a bone. He'll be the Bad Company or the Chubby Checker, where they're trying to keep a little cred with the older people. And it's an outrage. They shouldn't be that. None of them should be that. So let me hear. I got about 15 minutes. Make sure that you're over here, clicking the reaction. Let me know that you're there. So that, I got an idea whether I should keep doing this stuff or not. And if you're listening and you're feeling some kind of way about some of these bands, or a band that you believe should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that hasn't been nominated, bring them up, put it in the chat so that we can discuss it. I've already given you my main 3. Again, Devo, the Monkees, and Iron Maiden. I think I've made a case for all of them. Of course, the Rock Hall supposedly knows more than I do. And yeah, honestly, they do. Whether they ever get inducted or not is not going to keep me from not go. I mean, it's my Mecca. I go there every couple of years. And matter of fact, Amanda and I are due to go probably this year. If we it depends. We got a few trips that we got to go to. But if you've never been, it's worth going. If you love music, it's worth going. It's worth seeing the stuff that's in there. To see the awning of CBGB's. To see the wall from the wall. From the stage production of The Wall, to see that. That stuff is amazing. And then, to see, then there's the other stuff, Ringo Starr's drum kit and a bunch of Mick Jagger's costumes and Lady Gaga's meat suit, the suit she wore that was made of meat. You get to see those kinds of things, and that's cool too. Jimi Hendrix guitar, or if you're a music fan, that stuff is really gonna it'll lighten it'll tickle your fancy. One of the things that I see every year that always blows my mind is a piece of Otis Redding's plane. See, Otis Redding died in a plane crash, and they have a piece of the plane that says Otis Redding. They had his name on it, and so they have that, and that's that realization. Every time I see it, I get that same feeling of tragedy that happens with some of the stars. And you think about how famous they were and what they did, and then sometimes you got to realize that what they, it wasn't always lights and glamour. Look at Dimebag Darrell get shot down in a freaking concert venue. Dying on a stage that, he was with Damageplan at the time, right? But dying on a stage that's covered in spit and sweat, with the smell of stale beer and BO all around them from the people who were sitting there in the pit. You don't think about that, right? Or of course, Buddy Holly and Richie Valens and the Big Bopper who died in a plane crash. Was it February 9th? Right, the day the music died in a field that's frozen over that nobody knew about. By the time they figured out about it and somebody was out there, they were dead. They had nothing. We don't think about that kind of the tragic side, right? Even somebody like John Denver, Rocky Mountain High, and thank God I'm a country boy who dies in a plane crash. He was a pilot, and he was working on an experimental plane, I believe, or doing some shit like that, and bam. We don't think about that kind of stuff, and if we do, it's overlooked a lot. But every time that's really what pops into my mind when I see that part of his plane. It's got his name on it. But you get to see things like that, and it's cool. It really is cool. So if you get a chance, go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just to celebrate music. And you can be angry at their selection of people, and you can be angry at at who they believe should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who they believe shouldn't be. But still go and visit and celebrate the music that you like. So nobody else is throwing anybody in there who they believe should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who they can't believe has never been nominated, or who is in there and you think shouldn't be in there. I don't know if Simon and Garfunkel are in there, but if you're putting in other music, then they should be. Why not? Put them in there. I don't know if Cat Stevens is in there, but he should be. The whole singer-songwriter genre of music. I know you got Carly Simon in there. She's singer-songwriter. You got James Taylor in there. He's singer-songwriter. Why isn't Jim Croce in there? Actually, another one I think I need to add on that list. Jim Croce. The guy who put out just a couple of albums, man, was he influential in that singer-songwriter genre of the early 70s. You can, if you look up Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees, Jason, you'll see the list of who's in there. And there's going to be a bunch you'll agree with. There's going to be some that you're going to be like, nah, they shouldn't be in there. And then you're going to be some like, what the fuck are they doing in there? And that to me is always the fun part. It's having that discussion. It was the fun part of being on radio when I was able to talk with the listeners and have the listeners call in. My buddy Justin, who would always be, those 4 years that I did it, he was always there, and we were always great, and it was always fun to have that conversation. Harry Chapin, another one who should be in there in the singer-songwriter. Check out the Hall of Fame channel. Yeah, it is eclectic. I've heard it every now and then, and the thing about the Hall of Fame channel is they supposedly, I know every now and then they'll broadcast live from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Anthrax. Anthrax is a great example of a band that's waiting for Iron Maiden to break the wall. But with Anthrax, you're going into another genre, right? Because once you start talking about Anthrax, now you really start talking about Slayer, and you're talking about Suicidal Tendencies and other bands that end up being part of that whole skate rock thing, Now I know XM, Sirius X, yeah, I know who you're talking about. But they have their radio station in Cleveland, a studio anyway, and they'll broadcast there every now and then live. So yeah, if you guys get a chance, go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and try to stay out of the political side of it. Who's Gwar? Now that's an interesting band. That's a band who kind of took the theatric to the next level, right? They took the Kiss makeup to the next level. They took the Alice Cooper stage theatrics to the next level. That's a really, really interesting, national act. Were they influential enough? That becomes the question. Were they influential enough? And I got a couple minutes, but if we're going to throw out Gore because of their theatrics, and hip hop is already in there. I know some of you guys know where I'm going. Some of you guys know where I'm going, don't you? Out of Detroit. Whoop, whoop, family! ICP. ICP hits every marker that you want, that the rock and roll has. Influential? Hell yeah. Look at all the rap that comes out. Any band that's into that horrorcore, that comes right out of ICP. So influential. Significant. They're significant for a lot of reasons. You want to talk about a band that made it without any label support, without any radio play. The only song that they did that got any kind of radio play was their cover of "Let's Go All the Way." Sly and Fox's "Let's Go All the Way." That's the only song that ever got any kind of radio play from them. Guys became millionaires, marketing geniuses. They're the only reason Faygo still sells a bottle of soda today. They are more worthy of being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame than Mariah Carey. More worthy of being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame than Oasis. A fan base as loyal, if not more loyal, than Deadheads, than the fan base for the Grateful Dead. Their fans will tour with the band, just like Deadheads would tour with the Grateful Dead. Cat Stevens is in there. Good for him. But yeah, if we're gonna look at all the markers for being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, then ICP, the Insane Clown Posse, should be in there. Once you made the precedent by including rap, right? By including Run DMC and including Grandmaster Flash and including NWA and whoever else, yeah. Once you broke that mode, now there's no reason not to have ICP there. Just because you don't like them, just because you don't like their fan base. Who gives a shit what you like? Do they meet the criteria? Yes, and you're not setting a precedent by letting them in. I'm gonna bring that up. I might make a post about that on Facebook so I can get all the people to fucking get their knickers in a fucking bunch. What the fuck am I, English? Britain saying knickers. Come on, Alfredo, stop it. Anyway, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I hope that you guys had a good time and that you guys enjoyed the discussion. As always, please make sure that before you guys leave, please make sure that you hit the reaction button so that more people, so that I can see who came in. Because people come in and I'll get certain viewers who come in and come out and they won't leave a comment and they don't hit the reaction button. Button, and I don't know who came in, who's listening, who's not. So thanks. I appreciate you, Jason, for saying that. And also, Jason put up the link to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductees. Why don't you go take a look at that, and then come back and leave a comment. And did they get it right with some people? Did they get it wrong? How outraged are you? Do you not give a shit? Either way. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had a blast. And I will talk to you guys next week. All right. Until then, like I say, all the time for my kids. Take care. God bless. And don't forget, Daddy loves you. Later, dudes. Paisley on, children.